Chapter 166, Being Forced to Suffer in Silence. The young man was called Huang Su, the eldest son of the renowned Huang family from the provincial capital of Blue Town. He was also famous as the hedonist young master of the rich family. This was his first time coming to Star City to visit his old friend as well as seeing someone of a great talent that came to light recently, and upon hearing Andy cursing at him, a look of disbelief was cast on his face as he pointed to his nose and asked, "What did you say what I am?" "A hoodlum." "How am I a hoodlum?" "You yourself shouted at this young fellow, wanting to be his lover. This in itself is unbecoming to say already." "I did say that I'll let you be my lover, and you say that I'm a hoodlum?" "If I were a hoodlum, then what would he be?" After having said that, his hand pointed at Tang Xiu with a heart full of depressing feelings. Andy turned her head to look at Tang Xiu. Her eyes were flashing as though small stars as she spoke without batting an eye and didn't even try to gloss over her words. "He's my boss, of whom I'm about to target as my lover. I don't give a damn who you are, but I can be sure that you're not in any way around 1/100th of my boss." "No, you're not even 1,000th of him." Pfft. The visitors in the surrounding who stopped and were ready to watch the fun couldn't help laughing the instant they heard Andy's words. Huang Su's expression was somewhat embarrassed, but he still straightened up his chest and said, "Pretty girl, you've got to have your eyes opened wide. This big brother simply isn't as simple as you thought, judging by the fact that I can enter to this long dining hall only. I'm not afraid of telling you this. Go to provincial capital Blue City and ask about my name there. You'll find that there is no one there who doesn't know about me. If you follow me, you'll absolutely become very popular. Even after you sleep, when you awake you can count the number of money until your hands are cramped. How about it? Isn't that good enough?" With a contemptuous expression, Andy looked at Huang Su and ridiculed him. "Want to show off how much dirty money you have there? Who the hell do you think you are? A country leader? The richest man in the entire world or something? You said the entire people in Blue City know you. Don't tell me that you're a sweet-looking transgender, do you?" It was sour and harsh. Andy's words were as though a knife that pierced through Huang Su's heart. Even his face instantly turned crimson. Never in his wildest dream had he ever thought that a delicate and lovely angelic-looking girl would unexpectedly say such sour, harsh and mean words. Tang Xiu, who stood at the side, gently patted Andy's shoulder as he looked at Huang Su and said, "If you don't want to invite troubles and disaster upon you, you should immediately leave, as we ourselves also have something to do. In case you want to find someone to accompany you and have some fun, I might have an idea to help you." Huang Xiu might be a playboy, but he wasn't stupid enough to the point that he thought Tang Xiu was someone that was easy to bully. After all, as someone who was able to come to this Long's dining hall, this meant that he was not a casual person who was easy to be trifled with. In particular, this was Star City and not his Blue City. As people say, the strong dragon could be kept in check by local snakes. And if by chance the identity of the young man in front of him was not ordinary, he also would probably suffer a heavy loss. However, as far as he was concerned, a wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. With this in mind, Huang Su very cautiously looked at Tang Xiu as he asked, "Your Excellency, care to share who you are? As you have quite a big tone in you." Tang Xiu lightly said, "You don't need to know who I am, but if today's matter is resolved, then you and I are just passers-by only, and no longer have any issues whatsoever." Huang Su pricked his brows as he asked with a deepened tone, "Then, tell me this idea of yours. Say if your hormone is excessively abundant, just don't harass others girls as you wish. Take a look by yourself around you, find yourself nearby beauty parlors or pedicure salons. The price is cheaper and even you'll be served better by the senior-old hands there." Tang Xiu said. "What?" Huang Su was stunned. He stared at Tang Xiu with a look of disbelief as he almost couldn't hold his urge to punch him. Who was he to begin with? serving his needs with those in beauty parlors or pedicure salons at the roadside. If even he ever wanted a woman, with only a flick of his finger, a group of belles would rush to him, asking to be his pets. Did this fellow have no eyes? Or was there something wrong with his head? Did he even use his head to think before he spoke? Tang Xiao no longer paid any attention to Huang Su again as he took Andy to walk down the corridor toward the box where Long Zhengyu was in. Huang Su was but only a passerby to him, and speaking a few words to him was already a lordly treatment he could give. Inside a 1608 suite. Long Zhengyu was hugging a young and beautiful girl as he chatted with another young man who wore a florid sleeveless cloth, big pants and flip-flop sandal beside him. There were also several beautiful girls inside the room as some of them were playing and laughing. Some others were holding microphones to sing, while some others acted as though young maids who were unceasingly mixing and blending foreign wines. And these dozen pairs of eyes then immediately cast their sight on Tang Xiao the moment he opened the door. Ah, it's very lively here. Whilst leading Andy through the door, Tang Xiao looked at Long Zhengyu who was getting up and said with a smile. Long Zhengyu waved to the singing girl while smiling, motioning her to stop. After the room quieted down, only then he spoke with a smile. Some friends from Blue City came to visit today, so I invited them to drink some wine and have some fun. It's just that I didn't expect that you would come, and unexpectedly with a beauty also. TSK, this little angel of yours is truly a beauty. No wonder she can enter your eyes. Bah, no good words are to be expected from a scoundrel. Tang Xiao snappily cursed. Long Zhengyu laughed loudly as he turned toward the lazy-sitting young man and said, Fei Shan, he's Tang Xiao, the one I've told you about. Tang Xiao, this is Fei Shan, the second son of Fei family from Blue City. A wild and unyielding person, but even more so, a very lazy chap. But nevertheless, his nature is kinda go in between though, and worthy to be a long and close friend. If it wasn't called as cold, Tang Xiao didn't have much interest toward Long Zhengyu's friend at all. However, he slightly nodded at him since he took Long Zhengyu's face into account. Fei Shan himself didn't show any arrogance as he even laughed with an easygoing attitude, saying, How do you do, Tang Xiao? I've been looking forward to meeting you for a long time. This time the purpose of us visiting Star City, firstly is to see this famous young master Long, and secondly, we also wanted him to introduce us to a well-known reputed person, which is you. Huh? Is there something the matter with me? Tang Xiao asked. Fei Shan was quite dumbfounded with Tang Xiao's question. Whilst wryly smiling inside, he replied, It's nothing important. Anyways, it's still alright if I were to introduce myself to you, isn't it? Upon seeing this, Long Zhengyu quickly followed with a smile, Yo people, it's alright. It's me who told them about you, so they came here and wanted to know you better. And Tang Xiao, if you ever visit and have something to do in Blue City later, you may contact him. This fellow is kinda a local boss in Blue City, he can do quite a lot of things over there. Personal contacts? Tang Xiao could tell the meaning and purpose behind Long Zhengyu's reminder. Then, he faced Fei Shan as he nodded and said, Anyways, there's something I'd like to talk with Long Zhengyu today. So we'll have our chat afterward. No problem. Fei Shan said with a smile. At this moment, the door was pushed open again as Huang Su, with an embarrassed expression, entered the room dejectedly. But when he saw that Tang Xiao and Andy were inside the room, he stared blankly for a moment before an angry expression then was instantly drawn on his face. He glared angrily at Tang Xiao and shouted, Hey, punk. You did walk quickly. But I've never thought that you'll unexpectedly appear here. Don't think that I can't teach you a lesson even if I'm in Star City. Tang Xiao glanced at Huang Su before he turned over toward Long Zhengyu and asked, You know him? Long Zhengyu quickly said, Tang Xiao, is there any misunderstanding here? He's also my friend. Huang Su, a young master from the renowned Huang family in Blue City. Tang Xiu shook his head and said, Long Zhengyu, I have always believed that similar things will group up together as similar people will also fit together. I used to think that this line has its own truth. But it seems that today, I was wrong. This guy is not a good thing, and you're actually befriending him? Anyways, let's just forget it. Enjoy your fun time, I'll leave first. No, don't leave. With a forced smile, Long Zhengyu stopped Tang Xiu as he glared fiercely at Huang Su and shouted angrily, What the hell is happening with you? You wanted me to introduce you to Tang Xiu, and yet, you actually have your eyes and still failed to recognize empty Tai? Tang Xiu has never provoked trouble on his own initiative, and this character of his, I know perfectly well. So it should be you that should have done something untoward to provoke Brother Tang and made him unhappy, shouldn't you? As surprised as he was, Wang Su's eyes turned saucer and asked, He's Tang Xiu? Long Zhengyu angrily replied, Of course he is. Haven't I told you before that Brother Tang will come tonight? An embarrassed expression was revealed on Huang Su's face as he recalled all the things that had happened between him and Tang Xiu. Forcing himself to smile all over his face, he said, Brother Tang, it's my bad for being rude to you before. It's just I didn't know that you were Tang Xiu. I've heard so much about your deeds from Long Zhengyu, and in fact, I really admire you from the bottom of my heart. I failed to recognize a familiar person, thus led to the dispute. It's kinda the same with the fact that we can't recognize all the family members we have, isn't it? In the end, Tang Xiu couldn't help but sigh. Huang Su's character, that very easily invited troubles and disaster, was something he had never liked. After all, had it been in the immortal world, such person would have already been smashed into a pulp for hundreds of times. However, since he was Long Zhengyu's friend as well as the fact that he also wanted to ask some help from Long Zhengyu, he also didn't want to get to the heart of the matter and let it go. Let's just forget it and consider that the things that happened before didn't happen. But you should pay attention to this point, it's best to inquire about the others' details before you do something to provoke them. Otherwise, it would be very easy to have troubles upon you. Tang Xiu critics caused Huang Su's mood to turn slightly bad, but he still nodded his head nonetheless. With a smiling face, Long Zhengyu then pulled Tang Xiu to sit down on the sofa as he also ordered the girls to get out of the room at the same time. Only then did he continue asking, So, Brother Tang, you said that you need something from me before, what's up? Firstly, please get some food since Andy is quite starving. Tang Xiu said. Long Zhengyu pressed the bell button and an attendant arrived shortly after. After he ordered Tang Xiu's request and selected special dishes the Long's dining hall had, then, he looked at Tang Xiu and said, Yup, everything's done. So, can you tell me now about the matter? I've asked someone to invite some steward instructors from abroad, and they should arrive at Star City by tomorrow. So I was thinking to prepare accommodation for them in Southgate Town. That's your place, after all, so I want to ask for your help if there's anyone who is willing to lease their villa for rent. Also, I'll be using the villa for a few months. With a strange expression, Long Zhengyu looked at Tang Xiu and said, Huh? Buddy, you're not doing this intentionally, are you? Did you figure out that I just bought a villa in Southgate Town? Did you? In Southgate Town? Tang Xiu asked back with a confused expression. Long Zhengyu said with an intentionally forced smile, I did. I preserved one lot for my own use, not the one I've given to you, though. By chance, a friend of mine who already bought a villa in Southgate Town was preparing to immigrate abroad, so he wanted to sell it. Likewise, I was about to spend some money and renovate that place. Tang Xiu laughed heartily as he looked at the depressed expression on Long Zhengyu's face. Then, he said with a smile, If so, rent the villa to me for a couple of months, and I'll give it back to you after those foreign steward instructors leave. Long Zhengyu shook his head as he said with a sigh, You're simply like my ill-fated match, you know. But, you can have it, as I haven't had the place renovated yet. If you want to use it, I'll ask my female cousin to send the key to your house this evening. Your female cousin? Tang Xiu asked with a confused expression. Chapter 167, Forgetting the Previous Discord. Whilst looking at Tang Xiu's confused expression, a smile emerged on the corner of Long Zhengyu's mouth as he said with a smile, "You didn't know that Long Xueyao is my elder cousin?" Tang Xiu replied with an astonished expression, "She turns out to be your cousin? I really didn't know that. But nevertheless, I'm the one who ignored this point, though. Not too many people have your Long family's name, to begin with. Your family name is Long, as well as hers, while she's also the property manager of Southgate Town, so it's no wonder that she's your relative." Long Zhengyu replied with a laugh, "Well, it's not like it's an unpleasant thing to have, no? Anyway, in order not to make me a lot more depressed, you've got to stay here and drink a few glasses with us tonight." Tang Xiu shifted his sight at Andy as he nodded and said, "All right. I'll stay and accompany you to drink a few cups. Anyways, this is Andy, Kong Xia's right-hand woman. She's actually here waiting for Kong Xia to attend a charity auction party and got starved waiting. That's why I ordered the dishes for her to eat first." With an amazed expression, Long Zhengyu said, "Andy? The extraordinarily big famous succubus, Andy? Mr. Long, the words you said, was that supposed to be a praise or a curse? I might not be too proficient in Mandarin, but savoring the taste of your words, it seems like the flavor is kind of unbecoming, don't you think so?" Andy said with her lovely smile. Ugh. Long Zhengyu's complexion was strangled as he secretly rolled his eyes inside. A foreign girl who said she wasn't particularly proficient in Mandarin but yet was able to understand the subtle meaning behind his words? As he shook his head, Long Zhengyu let out a forced smile and said, "It's my bad to have misspoken out of indiscretion. Those people who say that you're a succubus are truly blind. You're very lovely, as though a fairy that descended to the mortal world. If later on there are still people speaking that you're like a succubus, those people are complete and total jerks." He he. Andy let out a laugh that reverberated as a pair of her two big lethal weapons on her chest waved and surged forth. All the young men present, including Tang Xiu, couldn't help but secretly swallow their saliva upon seeing it. It was seductive and way too tempting. As young and vigorous as they were, the four young men couldn't help but whisper inside their hearts one after another, "You're neither a succubus nor an angel, but a seductive coquettish young demoness who can wreck a country and bring ruin to the people." Cough cough. Tang Xiu coughed to conceal the awkwardness inside his heart as he spoke to divert the focus. "Long Zhengyu, I just recalled that your little brother hasn't come to harass me recently. Do you know where he is?" Upon hearing this, Long Zhengyu shook his head and said with a smile, "He's leaving for Blue City. I don't know what that kid is thinking. He unexpectedly spoke to my father and said that he wanted to set up his own enterprise. He said he'd mix in first in Blue City before going to Shanghai to develop himself further, as well as asked 5 million yuan from my father. It's been a couple of days since he has gone to Blue City, and he hasn't contacted me since." It turns out that he's really leaving Star City? Tang Xiu was astounded. "Huh? You seem to know about it. Care to tell me?" With a curious expression, Long Zhengyu asked. "Well, I can say that he left because of me. I told him that he won't have a bright future if he's always under the shelter of you and your parents' wings. Even though he's very smart and has a keen sense of business. However, he lacks ambition. I did stimulate him, but I never imagined that he'd really go to the outside world, though." Tang Xiu replied with a smile. Fei Shan and Huang Su glanced at each other. The both of them knew Long Jinglin's character inside out. As surprised as they were, for Long Jinglin to listen to Tang Xiu and adhere to his opinions was something that they had never imagined, causing their impression toward Tang Xiu to deepen a bit at this instant. Huang Su said, "Young Master Long, your second brother ran away to Blue City, and he didn't even contact me? Man, did we not have enough camaraderie?" Whatever. I'll look for him when we go back there. Regardless of any businesses he wanna do, I'm gonna help him and give him green lights to open his way. Fei Shan also said with a smile, "I might not be able to help in anything if he's in other places. But in Blue City, our words are quite useful. I know your little brother. He's kinda, well, quite wild and unruly, and it will be inevitable for him to come across some of the Blue City's local bullies. That reminds me of something. What line was it?" That's right, there's a common saying that a wicked person will be bedeviled by another of the same ilk. But heck, you can rest assured that we'll be looking after him in Blue City. Long Zhengyu grabbed the blended imported fine wine on the table and poured it into Tang Xiu's cup. Then, he raised his own cup and said, "To express my thanks and respect to all of you. Let's drink." As the wine entered his stomach, Tang Xiu squished his lips as he shook his head and said, "I have heard about these imported wines, but never had a chance to drink any. But, the taste is quite unpleasant. As I recall, we also have quite strong liquors brewed in our country, don't we?" Fei Shan's eyes lightened up as he immediately walked toward a cabinet at the side. Then, he grabbed a bottle of wine that was still wrapped in its package and went back to his previous position. As he handed the bottle to Tang Xiu, he said, "Brother Tang, you're also a man. You know that men like us like to drink strong liquors. So, you want to try tasting this wine I brought from Blue City?" Tang Xiu took the bottle as his sight landed on a sticker with the written slogan, "Serve the people," on top of the bottle. As he also saw the yellowish glutinous rice wine inside the bottle, he said with astonishment, "Isn't this the legendary special wine supply?" Fei Shan gave his thumbs up and exclaimed, "You do have good eyes, Brother Tang. This indeed is a special good wine supply for PLA Military District. My big brother is a chief of staff in the Northern Theater Command and he brought back this wine to give my grandfather, while I just happened to sneakily get my hands on it. I heard him saying that this wine is nearly 30 years old as it has been cellared in the Northern Theater Command's cellar, and only just came out 6 months ago." Tang Xiu smiled faintly. Let alone drinking good wines that merely aged for 3 decades, he had even drunk quite a lot of good wines that had been cellared for thousands of years. However, on Earth, the 30 years old cellared wines were already considered quite good wines. He opened the bottle and poured the wine into 4 cups. As he drank up the wine from the cup, he immediately felt a strong fragrant and mellow taste lingering on his tongue. It was as though there was a fire that went down through his throat and finally burst out inside his chest, as the strong heat flowed and quickly entered his stomach and spread out to his limbs and skeletal bones. It's really great and comfortable." Tang Xiu couldn't help but exclaim in praise. He felt that this wine was even better than the wines the Everlasting Feast Hall had. In this moment, he had quite an impulse. He wanted to homebrew a number of good wines himself. After all, a lot of people loved wine on Earth. And if he found someone who could truly appreciate the taste of good wine and moreover, tasting the wine he brewed himself, it would definitely be a joyous thing. And not only did Tang Xiu himself had a good winemaking technique, even the end product of his homebrewing wine was of the absolute best quality. And at this moment, Fei Shan's eyes were especially bright. He was as if meeting a soulmate as he felt a little closer to Tang Xiu when he said with a smile, "It seems that it was really worth it to steal this bottle of wine since I can get Brother Tang's appreciation. But I never expected that Brother Tang was also a wine lover. It's just a pity that I have too few of this good wine, otherwise, our drinking time could have been more joyous. It's all right. If you want to drink a good wine, just wait for some time. I'll bring some when I go to the university in Blue City. I'm sure the wine I bring will keep you satisfied." Tang Xiu said with a smile. Since he had the idea, then he might as well put it into motion. Tang Xiu decided to brew some good wines, since he thought that the materials to brew the wine was very easy to find, while the production cost was also very low. Not to mention that he also had a summer vacation coming, and he could take some time to brew it. Even if he couldn't drink it all, he could send them to his mother's restaurant. With a curious expression, Fei Shan asked, "Brother Tang, you also have some good wines?" "Not any yet. But I'm preparing to brew some," Tang Xiu said with a laugh. "Wow. You also know how to brew wine?" Fei Shan was astounded as he replied. "I did brew once. And the taste is kinda good," Tang Xiu said with a smile. Fei Shan clapped his hands and said with a laugh. "Brother Tang, it seems that not only are you an aficionado, but you also have already arrived at the point of becoming an enophile yourself. I'm really looking forward to your homebrewed wine. I'll be waiting for you to go to Blue City and treating you with a welcoming reception dinner in Blue City's best restaurant." Huang Su patted Fei Shan's shoulder as he said with a smile, "No can do. How could it be your turn to treat Brother Tang a welcoming dinner? I'm the one who has misspoken to him, and I can't just walk away without washing my wrongdoings, no? Brother Tang is much more mature than me, and he didn't lower himself to act like me. But I, Huang Su, put this matter seriously in mind. So, Brother Tang, I gotta be the host for you when you come to Blue City. Of course, that means I'll also be tasting the homebrewed wine you've personally made." Tang Xiu nodded with a smile. He might particularly don't like Huang Su. But as people say, hit not the people who are smiling at you and reach out your hand toward them. So, as Huang Su repeatedly expressed his goodwill toward him, it was a necessity to give him some face. Not to mention that he also perfectly realized the truth that having personal contacts in society was absolutely equal to having divine armament. If he could use it perfectly, it would be very helpful in dealing with a lot of things in the future. As for Andy, she didn't have much interest in wine. However, she was actually listening to the conversations with full enthusiasm. In particular, she could see as how long Zhang Yu and the two others wanted to be on good terms with Tang Xiu. This made her feel good inside as she felt that her judgment toward the man she was eyeing was really correct. In actuality, the made-up words she said to Tang Xiu that she wanted to be his lover was 20% true, while the rest 80% was but only a joke. Although she had a small figure, however, she still had what a normal person had with 7 apertures on her head and also a brain. She knew perfectly well about the nature of people. She was the kind of person who was keen in reading the intention within the words people said, as well as the expression whether ones were lying, or being sly and crafty to conceal their true intention in a mishmash speech. However, after having gone through things tonight and had a closer contact with Tang Xiu quite a lot, Andy could perceive and realize that not only was Tang Xiu an upright gentleman, he was also not the type of person who was fickle in love. She was just only 8 when her parents took her to China. After having lived here for 6 years, only then did they return back to the United States. In particular, after she returned back to the States, she made friends with a lot of Chinese descent people there, so she had a very deep knowledge about domestic customs. If it weren't for her Westerner looks, perhaps, nobody would have believed that she was a foreign girl. "Ladies, sirs, the dishes have been served." A middle-aged manager entered the box along with dozens of waitresses carrying a trolley of dishes. Although everyone couldn't see the dishes, for it were still covered, everyone could still smell the fragrance fluttering into their noses. Long Zhangyu looked at Tang Xiu and said, "So, how about we have the meal now?" Tang Xiu said with a smile, "Good wine has always been added with fine delicacies. So let's have a meal now." Immediately, everyone headed to the dining room. As they looked at the row of dishes lined up on the table, their appetite was sparked up. And just when some of them were ready to eat the meal, Andy's mobile phone ringed. "It's the call from Chief Kong." Andy took out her mobile as she looked at the caller ID number on the screen. Tang Xiu asked, what time the charity auction start? At 8:30 p.m., 20 minutes from now, Andy replied. If so, then ask her to come here to have a meal first. Tell her later that after being busy at work all day long, use the rest of the time to relax and rest. Create a balance between work and relaxation, and you'll be able to bring about more wealth and riches. Andy let out a sweet bright smile as she replied, having such a kind boss as you is truly a blessing for us. Chapter 168, A Fly. Upon hearing Andy's praise, Wang Su couldn't help but cast a glance and curled his lips as he secretly whispered, such a good sweetheart like you truly can make a man happy. I really don't know how Tang Xiu could have such achievement. Not only he had such awesome abilities, even such a peerless beauty took the initiative to run into his embrace. Shortly after discovering that Andy was accompanying Tang Xiu, Kong Xia came to the A1608 suite. She had met Long Zhengyu before, and even though she didn't know Huang Su and Fei Shan, she still plastered a smile on her face as she greeted everyone. Finally, she glanced at the smiling Andy and sat beside her. Hey, boss. It's really unfair, you know. I'm working hard dealing with the company and you're actually having fun here? How about you accompany me to attend the charity auction? Kong Xia looked at Tang Xiu with a beaming smile. Tang Xiu shook his head. Just when he was about to respond, he heard Long Zhengyu speak, is this charity auction the one arranged by Yang Weilan? Actually, I was also going to attend it, but since these two friends of mine came, I didn't prepare myself to go there. Anyways, Fei Shan, Wang Su, since the two of you have come, why don't we go to this charity auction? Even though Star City's auction can't be compared to your Blue City's, maybe you can still come across something that interests the both of you. Fei Shan and Huang Su nodded with a smile. Tang Xiu looked at these people as he finally let out a wry smile and said, such being the case, then I'll also attend it to broaden my knowledge. To tell you the truth, I've never had the chance to attend any upper-class charity party before. Fei Shan stood up and said with a smile, actually, this kind of charity party has two main purposes. The first is the charity auction, which in fact, is supposed to gather donations. The second one is, quite a lot of big names in business society, as well as a lot of science from major respected and renowned families, will be attending this level of charity party. In itself, the event is also used by the young masters and ladies to get to know each other and have closer exchanges, as it's best to directly meet the people in the interest of whom they would set their eyes on marriages. Tang Xiu suddenly lost his interest upon hearing this. However, since he had already promised, it would be awkward to go back on his word. Anyways, you all have a meal first as I gotta change my clothes. Otherwise, people would blast me out of the party if they see me dressed up like this. Fei Shan said with a laugh. 10 minutes later. After everyone had eaten, they waited until Fei Shan returned and then headed together to the hall on the 18th floor, where the charity party was being held. Since Kong Xia had the invitation, while a lot of people also knew Long Zhengyu's status as the Long family's young master, nobody stopped their group as they entered the spacious and bright party hall. The glowing, crystalline lamps illuminated everyone with its soft light as the party hall was already jam-packed with people. There were at least nearly 100 people that had already arrived inside. Each and every one of the guests was well-dressed and had elegant looks. Even if an ordinary person wanted to imitate such elegance, they would find it very difficult to do so with natural looks. As their group arrived, they attracted the attention of a lot of people, as they were also approached by a lot of people with beaming smiles whilst carrying a cup of red wine. Although Long Zhengyu was the Star City's Long family's successor and also had quite a reputation in the business society, Kong Xia's fame was far above his. However, Tang Xiu had told Kong Xia and the others to keep his identity a secret before they entered, so even though Kong Xia greeted all courteously, she didn't disclose Tang Xiu's identity. Taking advantage of this, Tang Xiu, Fei Shan and Huang Su went over toward the sofa at the side as the three of them then sat down. This is almost no different from the soap opera series on TV. Tang Xiu commented as he sat down. Fei Shan and Huang Su glanced at each other with looks of being at a loss whether to cry or laugh drawn on their faces. Only at this moment did they finally believe that this was Tang Xiu's first time attending an upper-class charity party. Brother Tang, there are a lot of famous young ladies coming tonight. The organizers also invited a lot of actresses and female celebrities. Take a look at that side, that person is a small star who has performed in some TV series. Although she can't be regarded as even a second-tier actress, however, it's obvious that someone wants to hook her up, see? Huang Su was very fond of females with sex appeal as his pair of greedy eyes also always cast their sight on the female's body, inside the party hall. Tang Xiu followed the direction pointed by his finger, but he didn't recognize the pointed young star who was said to have performed in some TV series. He shook his head and said with a smile, I'm still at school and have little interest with females' charm. If you like them, why don't you hook up some of them? But I politely advise you, though, never look for ones who have male companions, else you'll be incurring their rage. Brother Tang, I do like beauties, but it's not like I always straightly hit on the girls the moment I see them, you know. The thing is, when we just met tonight, it was because your girlfriend is way too beautiful. I've seen innumerable femme fatale beauties, but I gotta admit that not even one of them is at the same level. With a somewhat embarrassed expression, Huang Su explained with a wry smile. Tang Xiu only gave a smile and shook his head. He had seen a lot of femme fatale before. Even the fairy maiden maidservants he had in his immortal palace had an appearance that was on par even more beautiful than Andy's. The one he chose as a partner was mainly because he looked at the person's cultivation level as well as her character. Unfortunately, his judgment turned out to be gravely mistaken as he had never thought that the woman he chose betrayed him at the end. This was precisely the reason as to why Tang Xiu didn't want to involve himself with too many women. Had he ever had such a sexual drive, he would have just chosen to have sex with women with only mutual consent between him and the said women, albeit he didn't want to be attached to emotional and sentimental feelings between them. Perhaps, he would find himself a fairly pleasing to the eyes woman for him to marry in the future. But that would be in order to satisfy his mother's wish of being a grandmother only. 10 minutes later, when Tang Xiu felt bored and wanted to leave early, Andy came over while carrying a dessert and sat next to him. Her pair of bright and smart eyes looked at him as she said affectionately, "Boss, take this dessert, it's the best one I chose for you." Nodding, Tang Xiu picked it up and ate it. Then, he said, "How come you aren't accompanying Kong Xia, and instead running here?" "Well, I often attend this kind of party, and it kinda makes me bored. Those men are way too avaricious. They're always looking at me with those greedy eyes of theirs. Honestly, it's truly annoying. Besides, I'm your sweetheart, boss. No matter what, I won't have them look at me like that." Andy replied. Cough, cough. Fei Shan, who just drank his second red wine cup, choked upon hearing this. His face flushed red as he looked at Tang Xiu and Andy with an inconceivable expression. As for Huang Su, he secretly rolled his eyes. It reminded him of the things that had happened between him, Andy and Tang Xiu before. With a bit of a worshipping expression reflected in his eyes, he said, "Brother Tang, you're simply the reincarnation of the saint of love. If this femme fatale Lolita is willing to throw herself in my embrace, I won't even mind having my lifespan shortened for 3 years, truly." No, Andy was just joking. You don't need to take it seriously. Tang Xiu said with a laugh. Brother Tang, you really don't know that you're blessed and really lucky, right? Just get lost and take her to bed already, will you? Don't get me all stimulated and aroused here. Huang Su replied with a depressed expression. Tang Xiu didn't reply and looked at somewhere else. With a puzzled expression, Fei Shan looked at Tang Xiu and Andy as his sight then turned toward Huang Su and asked with a confused expression, "Ugh. I don't get it. What situation is this in the end? Huang Su said with a forced smile, what do you think it could be? Andy, this femme fatale, was crying and shouted that she wanted to be Brother Tang's lover. While he just shut her out. Perhaps, the only person in this world who would refuse such good thing is but the one and only Brother Tang. Fei Shan looked at Tang Xiu with a look of disbelief as an expression of respect was cast on his face when he exclaimed, wow. Brother Tang, you can still keep your composure even with this temptation? You're truly an upright gentleman. I might not be in the same rank as you, but I really worship you. Oh deity, please accept my noto. Tang Xiu involuntarily laughed. He suddenly realized that being with Huang Su and Fei Shan turned out to be quite refreshing. The more familiar he became with them, the more he was able to enjoy this kind of relaxed and fun feeling. Miss, may I invite you to a drink? A voice abruptly came from the few people around as a young man in a white suit and well-done hairdo came to stand before Andy, with a face full of a confident smile as he spoke. Andy just glanced at him and replied indifferently, I don't drink, thank you. Tang Xiu glanced at the crystal cup in her hand as his mouth severely twitched twice when he saw the cup was filled with a dark blood-red wine. What would the lying through one's teeth look like? This was it. And in particular, the way she refused the man, was truly one of a kind on its own. Even in his wildest dream, the young man surely never expected that Andy would even use such an excuse to refuse him. A look of humiliation and an anger was immediately revealed on his face as he said, if I'm not mistaken, you're Kong Xia's personal servant, aren't you? If you were Kong Xia, I might actually think to win your friendship. But you're just her subordinate and you're even so arrogant? Who gave you the confidence? Do you believe that I can make Chief Kong kick you out of the magnificent Tang Corporation with only a word? With an expression as though looking at an idiot, Andy looked at the young man and intentionally directed her mumble toward Tang Xiu. Trust me, I don't believe it even a bit. Why don't you try it? The young man was infuriated. He quickly waved to an attendant and whispered a few words to him. The attendant nodded and walked toward Kong Xia. After spending some effort to release herself from the crowd, Kong Xia came over to the group with a surprised expression. What happened? The young man quickly said, Chief Kong, do you remember me? I'm the Vice General Manager of the Mizia Cosmetics. We've met about the deal with our companies for the upcoming sales of your cosmetic products to the market. We also had a dinner before. Yes, I remember you. You're Chief Wu. Kong Xia nodded and said. A glint of surprise emitted out of Wu Changqing's eyes, as if to be remembered by Kong Xia was a great honor for him. Then, he glanced at Andy and said, Chief Kong, I've helped you with your request before. And now, could you do me a favor? Kong Xia's brows slanted and inquired, and what's the favor? Whilst pointing at Andy, Wu Changqing spoke with a proud expression, can you dismiss her? This staff of yours can't even understand the importance of the matter. So I think keeping her will only be courting a disaster. If only because of her the sales of your company would be affected later, the gains you'd have wouldn't equal to the losses. Kong Xia's face turned cold and said dimly, are you threatening me? No. Chief Kong misunderstood. I just asked for your help. Wu Changqing quickly replied. You're way too busy, it seems. I can't help you with this. In fact, even if I fire her it won't change anything. Besides, she's also a shareholder in the magnificent Tang Corporation. Moreover, I have to tell you this. The magnificent Tang Corporation has just made a decision that our company is about to be listed in the cosmetic market, and we will no longer use the Mizia Cosmetic Group's channel. Tell my message to your general manager when you go back. Chapter 169, Courting Trouble. As surprised as he was, Wu Changqing froze as his face immediately changed tragically. Even in his wildest dream, he had never thought that it would unexpectedly turn into such a situation. He knew that the talks and negotiations between their companies, more or less, had already been done. And even though the magnificent Tang Corporation was the one that took the initiative to find his company, however, the profit they would get was extremely huge. In the case that all the deals fell through because of this, then perhaps he would no longer be able to keep his position as the vice general manager anymore. Upon figuring out this point, cold sweat emerged on his forehead. He quickly let out an obsequious smile and said, This is only a misunderstanding. Truly a misunderstanding. Actually, I was only joking with this lovely and beautiful lady. Chief Kong, you've more wisdom than me, surely you'll understand. I give you my guarantee that our business relation will be very smooth. Moreover, I'm going to report to the general manager to give you some benefits and concessions after I go back. Tang Xiu looked up at Kong Xia and slowly asked, anyway, if we set up our own chain stores in every big city in the country, how much investment should we prepare? For a moment, Kong Xia stared blankly as she then replied with a wry smile, we'd need quite a huge sum. And spreading out specialized chain stores to sell the products all over the country within a short time will be quite difficult. Tang Xiu said, since it's a cosmetic business, we'll take a high-end route. Firstly, open our own exclusive stores in the biggest cities and then continue expanding to the second-tier cities. After the funds return, we'll continue to the lower-tiered cities. Do bear in mind that this is the sale of our cosmetics products. We must hold an absolute right to speak for ourselves. Kong Xia's expression changed as she nodded repeatedly, saying, understood. I'll revise the plan after I go back and modify it as per your request. However, about the preparation funding. Give me some time. At most up to 1 month, I'll give you the necessary funds needed for the early investment. Tang Xiu said. Pleasantly surprised, Kong Xia replied, great, if we have enough funds, I believe the time for our products to be listed on the market will be greatly shortened. Do remember, we might not make luxurious jewelry, but it's imperative for us to take the high-end route. As long as our cosmetic products are good enough, selling the products is not the aspect we should worry about. Tang Xiu said. Understood. Kong Xia nodded with a smile. Upon seeing as how Tang Xiu and Kong Xia were related to each other, Wu Changqing was at a complete loss as his mind was messed up. He just found out that the famous general manager of Magnificent Tang Corporation, Kong Xia, turned out to accept orders from someone else. Even more so, Kong Xia was just like a wage earner, an employee who listened to her boss's instructions. Who was this young man? How would he be able to give the orders to Kong Xia? Could he be? Wrong guesses out of his shock popped out inside Wu Changqing's mind, but he dismissed all of them the instant they appeared. He just simply didn't believe that Kong Xia would work under a 20-years-old young man. What was most unacceptable for him was that the big boss who recently invested an enormous investment for the Magnificent Tang Corporation turned out to be a young man. You are... Finally, Wu Changqing was unable to keep the doubts and questions inside his heart. As for Andy, who had an angelic appearance but an extremely sharp mouth, she gave out a big supercilious look toward Wu Changqing as she snapped at him, are you really an idiot? Our Magnificent Tang Corporation luckily hasn't done any business cooperation with your company. Otherwise, we would surely have been implicated by a dead no-brainer idiot like you. I thought Chief Kong had obviously shown her stand, but you are so stupid that you still asked. If I were you, I would have simply left to look for a block of tofu and hit myself to death and be done with it. It's better than hiding myself from the world because I've made myself a disgrace. Wow, that was harshly awesome. Huang Su secretly raised his thumb with a face full of a schadenfreude. His heart could be described as shattered to pieces when Andy humiliated him. The anger even almost drove him crazy. And now, upon hearing how Andy humiliated others, he felt somewhat comfortable. Even the feeling of shame he got from her before was dispelled. As words could say, Huang Xiu might be a lustful and lascivious person, but he was somewhat mindless in nature. With a face as white as wax paper, Wu Changqing looked at Tang Xiu with disbelief. He then shifted his sight toward Kong Xia. Still attempting to reconcile and redeem the situation, he squeezed out a smiling expression that was even more unsightly than crying, saying, "Chief Kong, this. Brother, I humbly admit that I'm at fault here. Please don't lower yourselves to my level, and I swear that there won't be any next time for what I've done. Our company needs this deal. If anything, we can have any matters settled through discussion. Get lost." Tang Xiu wanted no more explanation from him at this moment, as he detested Wu Changqing's arrogant and domineering attitude from before. "Vice Chief Wu, I've clearly told you about how I vision this matter already. No matter how hard you try to redeem this act of yours, this won't affect anything whatsoever. Please leave now. Don't make your company lose face here," Kong Xia said. Wu Changqing's lips twisted a few times. Upon knowing that he really couldn't save the day, he immediately turned hostile as he glared furiously at Kong Xia and Tang Xiu, saying, "What good people you all are. You have gut and courage, eh? Just wait later, I hope you won't regret this when the time comes." Huang Su raised his leg and curled it up on top of the other as he raised his palms and shouted, "Yo, punk retard. You talk too much. Do you believe that I, your big daddy, won't be able to drag you out? Brother Tang has told you to get the fuck out. Save your chirping somewhere else." Wu Changqing's neck shrunk as he left with a dejected look. Whilst slowly standing up, Tang Xiu then spoke, "Kong Xia, I'll leave everything here for you to handle. I'm not used to this kind of atmosphere, so I'll go home first. Anyways, Andy has drunk some wine tonight, so you should send her back." After having a guarantee from Tang Xiu about the provided funds, Kong Xia was in quite the good mood as she replied happily, "Boss, do you want me to send you back? Well, let's just say, I'm used to entertaining courtesy with courtesy as well. As for this auction, it's just for raising donations. Besides, we're too poor now, and I won't pretend to be a generous person here. So it won't be a problem if I take my leave either way. Is it okay if you leave now?" Tang Xiu asked with hesitation. "Yup, no problem." Kong Xia nodded heavily. "All right. If so, then drive me back home. Having said this, you also have to go home and rest as fast as possible," Tang Xiu said. Shortly after, Tang Xiu bade farewell to the trio Long Zhengyu, Huang Su, and Fei Shan, as he then left along with Kong Xia and Andy. At the entrance of the party hall, looking at the three's backs, Huang Su spoke with a sour expression, "Tang Xiu's luck with chicks is really way too awesome. Kong Xia alone is an outstanding belle, she could even overcome the light of the most beautiful woman in the capital. And that angelic-looking XXX Lolita, Andy doesn't lose to her. She also belongs to the rank of a rarely found most beautiful-looking women in the world. I think that on the surface, Kong Xia is going to send Tang Xiu back home, but I highly suspected that we'll go to bed and have an XXX, surely." With an expression of being at a loss whether to cry or laugh, Long Zhengyu replied to him, "Hey, big young master Huang, how the hell those words come out of your damn mouth? Since when have you changed your skin? I tell you, Tang Xiu is not that kind of person. He's not like you who will do XXX tricks. No, no. Young Master Long, I gotta rebuke what you just said. Haven't you heard the common saying that even heroes have a weakness for the charms of beautiful women? Kong Xia and Andy belong to the ranks of the most beautiful women, and you can only pick one of this kind of woman out of the thousands, no? Tang Xiu might have good self-control, but tell me, can he stay firm and able to withstand their enticements?" Fei Shan shook his head and said, "You two are really have a dirty mind." Long Zhengyu cursed as he said with a laugh. However, he deeply admired Tang Xiu as much as them inside. He was a smart person and had a good ability to observe and judge people's feelings and their mood. He could see that Kang Xia and Andy had deep impressions toward Tang Xiu. Once this kind of feeling was nurtured to a certain point, the feeling probably would change in essence and turn into a dead-set die-hard love. The next day, Kang Xia sent the company's car to pick up the 4 steward instructors from Great Britain who already arrived at the airport. She then drove them to Southgate Town's villa. Each of the 4 instructors had their own unique ability, and they were also very famous amongst the British aristocrats. After seeing these 4, he had spent quite a sum of money to hire. Tang Xiu directly sent them to Mu Qingping. As for what kind of skills she could learn from them, it depended entirely on her. At the evening, the same day, Tang Xiu took a high-speed train to Dongyuan province. There was no direct passenger flight from Star City to Songbei City, but the railway line was highly developed. It took him only 3 hours by high-speed train to get there. At 10 p.m., he finally arrived at Songbei City. At first, he intended to catch a cab outside after he left the train station. However, he was quite desperate afterward. There were a lot of taxis, but when he told the drivers the destination Qingshan Town, not even one of those drivers was willing to take him there. "Why aren't you willing to go there?" Tang Xiu couldn't help but ask the woman driver. The woman driver let out a forced smile as she replied, "Little brother, it's not that we don't want to take you there. It's just the distance from this train station to Qingshan Town is kinda distant, while the pay we got is also, well, not enough. Besides, it's very late and the location is very remote and it's very dangerous on the way there. Even if our customers are good people, but in the case we happen to bump into highwaymen, we'll surely be miserable." "Road robbers?" Tang Xiu didn't want to give up in vain, and asked curiously, "We are highly likely to encounter road robbers on the way from here to Qingshan Town? Shouldn't the law reach this place too? Besides, the police force should handle this problem, shouldn't it?" The woman driver replied with a sigh, "Take care of this problem, huh? It's not like the cops haven't tried to handle this problem. But those road toll brigands are just like rats. They are familiar with the surrounding topography. Not to mention that there are also quite a ton of paths to remote areas where you will rarely find people from the surroundings for dozens of miles. Even if the police want to arrest these brigands and bandits and stop them by force, it would still be very difficult to apprehend them. Every time these brigands see that the situation is not right, they will quickly drill into the roadside toward the forested mountain. It's hella difficult to catch them even if the police deploy a lot of manpower." Suddenly, the woman driver's voice quieted down a lot. She then turned and looked around. After she confirmed that no one was paying attention to her and Tang Xiu, she whispered, "Little brother, I advise you to spend the night in Songbei City. You can still rush to Qingshan Town tomorrow. Those highwaymen and road toll brigands are way too rampant and wild. I also heard that they have connections with some dirty cops in this city. So, it's better safe than sorry. We'll be out of luck if we come across these scourges." After hesitating for a moment, Tang Xiu let out a forced smile and said, "That being the case, then take me to Songbei Hotel. It's the hotel my friend suggested me to go." Seeing that Tang Xiu accepted her suggestion, the woman driver smiled all over as she replied immediately, Good. Then get on board, little brother. I'll take you to the best 5-star hotel in Songbei City." "Ah, right, do you need me to pick you up and drive you directly to Qingshan Town tomorrow morning? You also have this service?" Tang Xiu was astonished. The woman driver said with a laugh, "Well, you can say this as a big job scheduled in advance anyhow. You know, we, the taxi drivers of this Songbei City, can in no way be compared to those black limousine chauffeurs. So you've got to know how to work your way through if you want to keep your rice bowl, if you ask me." Tang Xiu said with a laugh, "So be it then. Come and pick me up in the early morning." Chapter 170, Traveling Across the Road Ruled by Might. The economic development of Songbei City was ordinary. Although it should be at the same urban classification level with Star City, the development and construction of its urban area and districts were far inferior than Star City. Even though the woman driver took Tang Xiu to the city's best 5-star hotel, but after he entered the hotel, he felt that the hotel was not even up to the 4-star standard. Certainly, the price here was also a lot cheaper. Both sides of Songbei City were encircled by hills as well as water. Obviously, this caused its geographical location in the mainland to be slightly remote. In the early morning of the next day, Tang Xiu had a breakfast in the hotel's dining hall after he took a bath, after which, he met the woman driver's taxi who came to pick him up. "How long do we need to travel to Qingshan town from here?" Tang Xiu asked. "Nearly 2.5 hours. Although the distance isn't that far, the road is quite rough. The government has been shouting all day, saying that a road from here to there will be built. It's been a couple of years already, I think. And yet, they haven't done anything. If the road is smooth, such a distance of 100 to 200 kilometers should be easy to reach within a little more than an hour's driving," the woman driver said with a smile. Tang Xiu nodded slightly. After he thought for a moment, he suddenly asked, "I heard that there's a sky cavern there, is it real?" For a moment, the woman driver was surprised. Then, she seemed to immediately awaken as she scrutinized Tang Xiu's eyes afterward. With a beaming smile, she then said with a smile, "Little brother, I presume you're going to Qingshan town in order to visit the sky cavern, aren't you? You've got to listen to Big Sis, don't throw yourself into danger there. This sky cavern is located in the remote area of the mountains and ancient forest. The mountain pathway is very steep, with vipers and beasts preying around as well as filled with miasma and swamps. A lot of people had ventured into the mountains, and they never came out. And every year, the next visitors find the bones of the dead, a lot." Tang Xiu curiously said, "This prime forest mountain range is a kind of large mountain range in the country, then why the local government hasn't thought to develop it into a scenic site? Nowadays, in every part of our country, if one place has only a bit of scenic site, the authority wantonly builds tourist attractions there, in the hope to attract a large number of home and foreign tourists to help improving the economic development of the region. Why wouldn't Songbei City exploit this capital they have?" The woman driver replied with a forced smile, "Well, I tell you 3 words that would be the most appropriate to describe the authority in Songbei City." "Huh? Which 3 words?" Tang Xiu asked. "Do not act," the woman driver bluntly said. Tang Xiu couldn't help but laugh. The woman driver said it in a simple manner, but the meaning brought along with her expression was very vivid and made him lament. In regard to this point, he recalled the remark Yuan Chuling had told him, for which he could clearly remember it vividly until now. In regards to government officials, they're not worried having voracious corrupt acts. Just like all the crows in the world, they're all sort of blackened as this is what is required to be promoted in their organization. If one wanted to stay clean and not become corrupted themselves, whoever they are, they would find themselves in difficult predicament. Some of these corrupt officials are but only executing the orders of their bosses, while some others are doing it out of their own interests. Of these 2 types of bureaucrats, the latter is the most loathsome. Tang Xiu didn't want to continue chatting about the issues with the local government, so he smiled and shook his head as he shifted his vision to the outside of the window. The taxi drove very fast, and it only took half an hour to leave Songbei City downtown into the country road. Without spending much effort, they already arrived at the end of the fairly wide road, as the rough graveled road was seen in front. "Ugh. Every time I take this road, it gives me a headache." The woman driver clearly wasn't the solitary type. Not long after their conversation ended, she started talking again. Tang Xiu, on the other hand, didn't want to chat anymore. As he sat in the back row and looked at the woman driver driving, he said, "I want to rest for a while. Wake me up when we have arrived at Qingshan town."
Ah.
You're going to sleep? You didn't have a good rest last night? The woman driver was surprised and asked. Tang Xiu hummed, confirming it. The woman driver said with a laugh.
Ah.
Right. It was already past 10 p.m. when you arrived in Songbei City last night. Checking into the hotel, having a bath and then hitting the bunk, you were only able to sleep till 12 a.m. And you had to get up early in the morning as well, so it would be strange if you don't feel sleepy. Anyways, take your rest until this big sis shouts to wake you up, little brother. Thanks a bunch. Tang Xiu replied and then slowly shut his eyes. He did sleep very late last night. It wasn't at 12 a.m. but around 2 or 3 a.m. After all, no matter how busy he was every day, he was determined to allocate some time to cultivate. Although the increase of star force inside his body wasn't too much, he could still accumulate it, albeit quite slowly. One day, as the conditions were ripe, he would naturally be successful and break through to the skin-strengthening late stage. Time passed by. The sudden sound of brakes made Tang Xiu abruptly awake from his deep sleep.
Ugh.
What happened? Tang Xiu's body was thrown to the front. If it weren't for his fast reaction, he would have had his head bump into the back of the front seat. After opening his eyes, he frowned and immediately asked. The woman driver's complexion had turned white as a restless expression could be seen from her eyes. With an astringent expression, she turned her head and replied, "We're in bad luck. I didn't expect that we'd encounter road robbers in this broad daylight." Tang Xiu looked at the outside through the window. He immediately saw that 3 vans were surrounding the taxi after it stopped. There were also 4 or 5 big stones blocking the road about 7 or 8 meters in front of the taxi. Looking at the surrounding environment, Tang Xiu quickly figured out. The road had a 3-fork junction in front and the 3 vans should have long been parked on both sides of the junction, waiting for the passing cars. As soon as the car passed by, they would immediately drive inside and outflank the car to stop it. And those 4 or 5 stones were probably thrown on the road for this temporary use. It was just that he didn't expect that these people would be so bold and go as far as waylaying in the road, robbing in broad daylight when the earth and the sky were so clear. From this only, it could be seen as how rampant these people were. The local government really doesn't act. Sighing inside, Tang Xiu was in fact not feeling very anxious. As he watched brawny men rushing out of the 3 vans with knives in their hands, he calmly said, "You wait in the car. I'll go out and see them." The woman driver hastily said, "Little brother, don't rush at them. These people usually only want money. As long as you give them money, your safety will be guaranteed. But if you resist them, they won't hesitate to ruthlessly smash you." Tang Xiu didn't reply. He opened the door and got off. And then looked at the fierce-looking big men as he said, "You're waylaying the road, playing the robbers?" In front of more than 10 big men was a bald man with a thick gold chain around his neck and a grim knife scar on his left cheek. That looked like a centipede. He was holding a mountain knife, as he grimly laughed and said, "You kid knows our business, eh? Since you know that we're waylaying here, then be obedient and take out all of your money and valuables. Perhaps, you'll make us brothers happy and you'll save yourselves from broken legs." For a moment, Tang Xiu was silent. Then, he slowly said, "Have you ever heard the saying that, the wicked will be grounded by the evil?" The bald big guy stared blankly for a second, and then burst into laughter immediately before he replied, "You mean, you're also the evil? And you must give us the lesson or something?" Tang Xiu raised his thumb up and praised with a sigh.
Ah.
"Since you can understand it well, so I presume you're a smart one. But it's a pity, though. The path you took is not a good one, and your brain is filled with crooked ideas. Today, on the behalf of your parents, I will help them educate you well, so as to make you completely redeem your wrongdoings and help their prodigal sons turn a new leaf in life." Pfft. The dozens of big men and the baldy big guy were laughing wildly. Even some big men around were also smiling amidst their laughter, looking at Tang Xiu as if they were looking at an idiot. After a long while, the baldy big guy stopped laughing. He watched Tang Xiu while hooking his fingers and said with a smile, "Kid, do you know what people call me? The Scarblade Chung. Even the people on the street call me Big Brother Chang. How is it? Have you heard the name of this big brother?" Whilst shaking his head, Tang Xiu replied, "I'm just a country bumpkin and have shallow experience. The name doesn't ring a bell, truly." "Are you that famous?" One of the big guys grinned and said with a smile, "Famous? Far more than famous. Brother Chang absolutely has a reputation outside. You're very tactful, kid. You know yourself as being a country bumpkin, so it's natural that you didn't know."
Nah.
"I gotta refute your words. I don't think he's really famous. You wanna know why?" Tang Xiu said and shook his head. "Huh? Why?" The big guy replied with a puzzled expression. "So to speak, the shot will hit the birds that poke its head out. Thus, if he's really that famous, the cops probably had him apprehended already. The public security here might be bad, but I don't think that the police will tolerate notorious people who act too rampant. Don't you think so?" Tang Xiu replied with an unenthusiastic response. "You punk. You're specially courting your own death." The big guy flew into a rage and pointed his knife toward Tang Xiu. The Scarblade Chang waved his hand to stop the big guy. As he narrowed his eyes to scrutinize Tang Xiu, he lightly said, "Kid, I admire your balls, really. Facing and talking so frankly with us with such confidence, that means you're not ordinary. Are you also one of us? Tell these brothers your name." "I told you that I come from the countryside, didn't I?" Tang Xiu said. The Scarblade Chung looked deeply at Tang Xiu's eyes. As a bit of fiendish-looking grin appeared on his face, he said, "You had the opportunity, but you didn't take it. If so, we brothers will be polite no longer. Take out all of your belongings, and drag out that driver in the cab also. All of you must take out all of your money to pay out. Else, you'll have yourself drown in a bloody disaster today." With a cold and detached expression, Tang Xiu replied, "I throw these words back to you. Gimme all of your riches, else don't blame me if I fuck you up. Also, take off the dog chain on your neck, your wristwatch, and give all of your money and valuables to me." Scarblade Chang blankly stared for a moment, and even the 10 big men around were also dumbfounded. However, within just a few seconds later, they reacted. As anger hung on the face of each and every one of them, they aggressively swarmed over toward Tang Xiu. A cold and grim expression emerged on Tang Xiu's face. Looking at the slashing knife that was coming at his face, his feet flashed and instantly avoided it by a hair. His fist at the same time hit the bridge of the man's nose. Even though he didn't use much strength, but the punch was enough to smash the man's nose. Pang, pang. Tang Xiu was as though a brave tiger, whilst those big men were as soft as lambs. When a tiger ran into a flock of lambs, the end result was naturally obvious. Within just 7 or 8 breaths, the dozens of big men had already been knocked down by Tang Xiu. Each and every one of them was as though a curling shrimp on the ground, wailing and screaming in pain. Scarblade Chang hadn't yet acted. Now, he was the only one who was still perfectly intact and standing. His pupils were contracted, while an expression of disbelief flashed from his eyes as he stared tightly at Tang Xiu as if he was looking at a terrifying monster. He had seen a lot of martial arts masters, but such a frightening one he had never seen before. At this moment, he even suspected himself that if he wasn't dreaming right now, then, could it be Tang Xiu in front of him was a retired Special Forces soldier? A super soldier commando?